Dr. Park Jin was tired. He had just finished 3 big animal surgeries at his small vet clinic. All he wanted was to go home and sleep. His clinic sat on the edge of New Seoul Colony, far from the busy city center. As the only vet who could treat both Earth pets and some alien animals, he was always busy. Jin hung up his white coat when his comm unit rang. Dr. Park's vet clinic, he answered with a tired voice. Doctor, this is Captain Kim's son from the Space Trade Authority. We have a big problem, the captain said, sounding worried. A Ravager was hurt during space travel. Jin almost dropped his comm unit. Ravagers were the most feared animals in the galaxy. They had 8 limbs with sharp edges, deadly poison, and they were known to kill anything they saw. No human had ever survived meeting an adult Ravager. Captain Kim, I'm just a vet, not someone with a death wish, Jin said. Call the Galaxy Animal Research Center. We did. They are 12 hours away. The creature is dying, Captain Kim explained. It was being moved to a research lab when its cage was damaged by space rocks. The sleep drugs are wearing off, and it's getting worse. Jin ran his hand through his messy hair. I know nothing about Ravager bodies. You're all we have, Doctor. The research team is sending you all their data now. The beast is asleep but fading fast. Jin looked at his computer as files started coming in. Even though every part of him said to stay away, his doctor's mind was curious. Ravagers were amazing creatures, the top hunters from the harshest place in the galaxy. I'll need a safe room, strong restraints, and a full emergency team standing by, Jin said, knowing he was making a bad choice. Already setting it up. A ship will be at your door in 5 minutes. As Jin gathered his tools, his helper Li Nag came into the room. I heard, she said simply. I've packed the emergency field kit. Jin looked at her with surprise. You don't have to come. This is way beyond. I've helped you with sandworms and crystal snakes, she cut him off. I'm not missing the chance to see a Ravager up close, even if it might be the last thing we ever see. Jin nodded, thankful for her help. He was scared, but something more than duty was driving him. This was a chance to do something no human had ever done. To understand a creature that had only been studied from far away or after it was dead. When they arrived at the hastily prepared safe room, Jin's heart almost stopped. Even asleep and hurt, the Ravager was terrifying. It was a mass of blue-black hard skin and moving limbs. Each limb ended with what looked like sharp bone blades. It was huge, easily 3 times bigger than a tiger, with a middle body that moved with unknown organs. What happened to it? Jin asked, moving closer with care. One of the guards pointed to a jagged wound on what seemed to be the creature's chest. Container breach. Metal cut right through its outer shell. Jin studied the wound from a safe distance. I'll need more sleep drugs before I can even get close to it. That's the problem, said Captain Kim, who had joined them. Its body is using up our strongest sleep drugs very fast. We've already used 3 times the amount that should kill most creatures. Jin looked at the data on his tablet. The creature's body was unlike anything he'd ever seen. A mix of insect and mammal features, with a blood system that seemed to use both regular blood and a second, unknown fluid. We're going to need to try new things, Jin said, putting on protective gear. Prepare the strongest paralyzing drug we have. I'm going to try something that would be very stupid with any earth animal. As Na hurried to get ready, Jin felt a strange calm replace his fear. This wasn't just about saving a dangerous creature. It was about understanding something new, something alien. And despite the risk, he couldn't deny the excitement of it. Jin didn't know that this foolish decision would change not just his life, but how different species in space would get along forever. The next 3 hours were the most intense of Jin's medical career. The Ravager's body was even more complex than the data had shown. What looked like one wound had actually damaged 3 connected organ systems. Its brain activity is increasing, Na warned, watching a scanner. The sleep drugs are stopping. Jin worked faster, his hand steady despite the danger. He had fixed what he thought was the main blood damage, but the second fluid, a glowing blue substance, was still leaking inside the creature's chest. "I need to close this channel," he said. "The normal stitches aren't holding." Suddenly, the Ravager's upper limbs twitched. The guards raised their weapons, but Jin held up his hand. "Don't shoot. A stray shot could hit these fluid sacs. They might be very reactive." Using a special glue made for Mars rockworms, Jin sealed the leaking channel. The blue fluid stabilized, and the creature's vital signs began to steady. "I think we've done it," Jin said, stepping back carefully. That's when the Ravager's eyes opened. 8 shiny orbs, arranged in a half circle on what might be called its head, blinked all at once. Jin froze. The guards tensed. Instead of the expected attack, the creature stayed still, its eyes fixed on Jin. A low vibration came from its body, not the growl they had expected, but something more rhythmic. "Is it purring?" Nay whispered in disbelief. "I don't think it has the body parts for that," Jin replied, not taking his eyes off the creature. "But it's definitely making some sort of pattern of sounds." Captain Kim approached carefully. "Is it still asleep?" "No," Jin said, feeling strangely calm despite standing just feet from an awake Ravager. "But it's not attacking either." The creature slowly raised one of its bladed limbs. The guards aimed their weapons, but Jin motioned them to wait. The limb extended toward him, stopping inches from his protective mask. Then, with gentle precision that seemed impossible for such a scary creature, it tapped the mask twice. I think it's trying to talk to us," Jin said, barely able to believe his own words. The room went silent. For the first time in human history, someone was face to face with an awake Ravager and still alive to talk about it. Jin looked into the creature's 8 eyes and felt something he never expected, a connection, a sense that behind those alien eyes was a mind trying to reach his. In that moment, he knew his foolish decision to treat this beast might be the start of something amazing. Over the next few days, Jin spent all his time with the Ravager. He set up a bed in the corner of the secure room. Sleep was hard to come by. Jin was both scared and excited about what was happening. The Ravager, which the team started calling Blue because of its glowing blue fluid, showed more signs of intelligence every day. It watched Jin work. It seemed to listen when people talked. Most surprising of all, it did not try to attack anyone. "I don't understand," Captain Kim said as he watched Jin check Blue's wound. "Every report says these creatures are killing machines. This one should be trying to tear us apart." Jin carefully removed the bandage from Blue's chest. The wound was healing fast. "Maybe we've been wrong about them all along. Or maybe this one is different." Na, who had also stayed to help, was typing notes on a tablet. "It's responding to simple commands now. Watch." She held up 3 fingers, then 2. "How many fingers am I holding up total?" "Blue." The Ravager tapped one of its blade limbs on the floor 5 times. Captain Kim's eyes widened. "It can count." "Not only that," Jin said. "It seems to understand some words. Simple ones, at least." He looked at Blue. "Are you in pain?" Blue tapped its limb once on the floor. "That means yes," Nay explained to Captain Kim. 2 taps for no. Jin reached for a pain medicine injector. "I'm going to give you something for the pain now. Blue, it will help." The Ravager watched calmly as Jin injected the medicine near its wound. On the 5th day, a team of alien experts arrived from Earth. Their leader was Dr. Yunta, a woman with serious eyes and gray in her hair. She did not believe what she was seeing. "This is not possible," she said after watching Blue solve a simple puzzle Nye had made. "Ravagers don't have the brain structure for this kind of thinking." Jin pointed to new scans they had taken of Blue's head. "Look at these areas here and here. They don't match any of the old Ravager brain scans." Dr. Yun frowned. "Those old scans were from dead specimens. Maybe something changes when they die." As they talked, Blue was watching them closely. It picked up the puzzle it had just solved and took it apart, then put it back together again, faster this time. "It's learning," May said, "getting better with practice." That night, Jin was alone with Blue. The night guards were outside the door. He sat on a stool, going over the day's data. Blue was resting in its holding area, which now had soft bedding and some simple toys. Jin looked up and found all 8 of Blue's eyes watching him. "Can't sleep either, huh?" he said with a small smile. Blue tapped once on the floor. "I've been thinking," Jin said, moving his stool closer. "You understand a lot more than we first thought. I'd wonder how much." He pulled out a tablet and opened a drawing program. He drew a simple picture of a human, then a simple picture of a Ravager. Then he drew a question mark between them. Blue looked at the drawing for a long time. Then it reached out slowly. Jin held very still as one sharp limb came close to the tablet. With careful movements, Blue used its limb tip to draw a simple line connecting the human and Ravager. Jin's heart beat faster. "You think we can be connected? Friends?" Blue tapped once. "But your kind has killed many humans, and humans have killed many of your kind." Blue tapped once again. Was that all a mistake? A misunderstanding? Another single tap. Jin sat back, his mind racing. If he was right, if Blue really understood these questions, this changed everything known about Ravagers. They weren't mindless killing machines. They were thinking beings. The next morning, Jin called an emergency meeting with Dr. Yoon, Captain Kim, and the colony's leader, Governor Park Soo. "I believe Blue is not just intelligent," Jin said. "I believe its entire species is intelligent. I think all our conflicts with them have been a huge misunderstanding." Governor Park looked skeptical. "Based on what?" "Some tapping and puzzle solving." Jin showed them videos of his interactions with Blue, including the drawing from the night before. Blue understands abstract ideas. It can communicate. It shows signs of empathy. These are not the behaviors of a mindless predator. Dr. Yoon was still doubtful. Even if this one is special, there are records of hundreds of Ravager attacks on human outposts. "Have we ever tried to communicate with them before shooting?" Jin asked. "Have we ever approached them without weapons?" The room was quiet. Captain Kim spoke first. "What do you suggest, Dr. Park?" "I want to try something new," Jin said. "If Blue is this intelligent, maybe there's a better way to communicate. The colony has a mind-reading specialist, right? For helping trauma patients." Governor Park nodded slowly. "Dr. Choi Mai. But what you're suggesting is risky." "I know," Jin finished, "but I think it's worth it." 2 days later, Dr. Choi Mi arrived at the secure facility. She was a small woman with calm eyes and a gentle voice. She looked at Blue without fear. "You believe it's safe?" she asked Jin. "Blue has had many chances to hurt us," Jin said. "It hasn't taken any of them." Dr. Choi set up her equipment, a special headset for her and a modified scanner for Blue. "This will let me sense its basic thoughts and feelings. Nothing deep, just surface impressions." Jin, Na, and Dr. Yoon watched as Dr. Choi began the session. She closed her eyes, focusing. Blue sat very still, all 8 eyes fixed on her. After a few minutes, Dr. Choi gasped. Her eyes flew open. "What is it?" Jin asked, stepping forward. "Are you okay?" Dr. Choi looked at Blue with wonder. "It's not just intelligent," she whispered. It's telepathic. It's been trying to reach out to our minds since it woke up." "Telepathic," Dr. Yoon repeated in disbelief. "Yes," Dr. Choi said, "but human minds are close to it. Except," she turned to Jin, "it connected with you, somehow, when you were tired, when your mental guards were down. That's why it trusts you." Jin remembered the strange dreams he'd been having, dreams of crystal forests and blue caves. "What did you see in its mind?" he asked. "A civilization," Dr. Choi said simply. "A whole world. The Ravagers, They call themselves something else, a word I can't pronounce. They're not just animals. They're a society, an advanced one. Everyone looked at Blue, who was still watching Dr. Choi intently. It wants to talk more, Dr. Choi said. It wants to explain. About its people. About the misunderstandings. About how we can stop the fighting. Jin felt a wave of emotion. Hope, fear, excitement all mixed together. His foolish decision to treat a dying beast had led to the biggest discovery in human history. Then let's talk, he said. A week passed since Dr. Choi's first mind connection with Blue. Every day brought new understanding. Blue and Dr. Choi spent hours in mental contact. After each session, she shared what she learned with Jin, Na, and the growing team of experts. Their species is called the Harmonia, Dr. Choi explained during one meeting. They don't speak with sounds like we do. They use their minds to talk to each other. That explains why we thought they were just animals. Dr. Yoon said, we were looking for the wrong signs of intelligence. Jin nodded. We couldn't hear them, and they couldn't hear us. News about Blue had reached Earth's leaders. Some people were excited about meeting the new smart alien race. Others were scared. Many families had lost loved ones to Ravager attacks. Governor Park called Jin to her office. Earth Command is sending a special team, she said. They want to take Blue to a bigger research center. Jin frowned. Blue isn't a research subject. It's a person from another world. I understand your feelings, Dr. Park, the governor said. But this is bigger than just one doctor and one alien now. This affects all humans and all Harmonia. Jin knew she was right, but he worried. Blue trusted him. What would happen if strangers took over? That night, Jin sat with Blue. They want to move you to Earth, he said. I don't know if I can stop it. Blue tapped twice on the floor. No. You don't want to go. One tap. Yes. Are you afraid? One tap again. Jin sighed. I wish I could understand you better. Blue reached out slowly and touched Jin's hand with the flat side of its blade limb. Then it pointed to its own head, then to Jin's. You want to connect with my mind. Directly. Without Dr. Choi. One tap. Jin felt nervous. Dr. Choi was trained for this. He was just a vet. But he trusted Blue. Okay, he said. Let's try. Jin closed his eyes and tried to relax his mind, the way Dr. Choi had taught him. At first, he felt nothing. Then slowly, he began to sense something, like a light touch on his thoughts. Images came into his mind. He saw a beautiful world with purple skies and huge crystal towers. He saw Harmonia of all sizes living together, sharing thoughts, working together. Then the images changed. He saw the first human ships arrive. He felt the confusion and fear of the Harmonia when they tried to reach out with their minds, but found only silence from the humans. The Harmonia thought humans had no minds at all, just empty bodies that moved and killed. The humans thought the Harmonia were just deadly animals. Both sides were wrong. Both sides were afraid. And so they fought. When Jin opened his eyes, they were wet with tears. All this time, he whispered, all this fighting because we couldn't talk to each other. Blue gently tapped Jin's hand once. The next morning, the Earth team arrived. They were led by Admiral Lee Ho, a tall man with a stern face and many medals on his uniform. Dr. Park, he said when they met, I understand you've grown attached to the subject. Blue isn't a subject, Jin said firmly. Blue is a person. The Harmonia are people. Admiral Lee looked skeptical. People who have killed hundreds of humans. Because we killed them first, Jin said. Because neither side understood the other. The Admiral didn't look convinced, but he agreed to meet Blue. Jin led him to the secure room, which now looked more like a living space than a cell. Blue was working on a complex puzzle that Dr. Yoon had brought. So this is the famous Ravager, Admiral Lee said. Blue looked up at the sound of his voice, all 8 eyes fixed on the Admiral. Blue prefers to be called Harmonia, Jin said. And yes, this is the one I treated. Admiral Lee studied Blue. Hard to believe this creature is part of an advanced civilization. Blue put down the puzzle piece it was holding. It picked up a tablet and opened a drawing program that Nay had shown it how to use. With careful movements, it drew a simple picture of Earth, then a picture of its own world. Then it drew lines connecting them. It wants peace between our worlds, Jin explained. The Admiral looked surprised. It can understand concepts that complex. Blue understands more than any of us realized, Jin said. And there's something else you should know. Last night, I made direct mental contact with Blue. You what? The Admiral looked alarmed. Without safety measures, without supervision. It was safe, Jin insisted. Blue showed me their world, their society. They're peaceful among themselves. They only fought us because they thought we weren't thinking beings, because they couldn't sense our minds. Dr. Choi entered the room. It's true, Admiral. The Harmonia are telepathic by nature. When they met humans and couldn't connect mentally, they thought we were like empty shells, dangerous animals. Just as we thought they were animals, Dr. Yoon added, joining them. Admiral Lee looked thoughtful. If what you're saying is true, this changes everything we thought we knew about the Ravager. I mean, the Harmonia. It does, Jin agreed. And that's why we need to be careful about what happens next. Blue trusts us now. We can build on that trust. Over the next few days, more specialists arrived. They set up better communication systems. Dr. Choi trained others in basic mental contact techniques. Blue was patient with all of them, even when tests were repeated many times. One morning, Jin arrived to find Blue drawing something new on its tablet. It was a map of stars, the space between Earth and the Harmonia homeworld. What's this, Blue? Jin asked. Blue pointed to a spot on the map, then made a gesture that Jin had learned meant many or lots. Many what? Jin wondered. Then he realized. Many Harmonia, the big group. Blue tapped once. Admiral Lee studied the map. Is it saying there's a Harmonia fleet in that sector? Jin asked Blue directly. Are your people gathering there? One tap. Are they planning to attack? Admiral Lee asked sharply. Blue tapped twice. No. Then why are they there? Jin asked. Blue drew another picture, simple shapes that looked like Harmonia and humans standing together. They want to meet, Dr. Choi said quietly. They know about Blue. They want to talk. Admiral Lee looked troubled. If there's a large group of Harmonia in that sector, our military will see it as a threat. Then we need to change that view, Jin said firmly. Blue has shown us the truth. Now we need to share it with others before more fighting happens. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. I'll contact Earth Command. But we'll need more proof, more data. Blue tapped on the floor to get their attention. When they all looked, it pointed to its own head, then to all of them, one by one. I think, Jin said, Blue is offering to connect with all of you, to show you directly what I've seen. Is that safe? Admiral Lee asked Dr. Choi. She nodded. Blue has been very gentle in all mental contacts. I believe it's offering us its trust. As they prepared for this new form of contact, Jin looked at Blue with wonder. The creature he had foolishly agreed to treat, the most feared predator in the galaxy, might now become the bridge between two civilizations. Blue caught Jin's eye and made a gesture that Jin had never seen before. It crossed two of its blade limbs in an X shape over where its heart might be. What does that mean? Jin asked Dr. Choi. She smiled. It's a Harmonia gesture. It means friend of my mind. It's their highest compliment. Jin returned the gesture as best he could with his human arms. Friend of my mind, he repeated softly. The foolish vet and the deadly beast had become something no one could have imagined. The start of a new understanding between worlds. 2 weeks had passed since Admiral Lee and his team arrived. Earth's leaders had made a big decision. They would meet with the Harmonia. The meeting place would be in neutral space, halfway between Earth and the Harmonia world. Jin sat in the main meeting room with Blue, Admiral Lee, Dr. Choi, and Governor Park. They were planning the first official contact between humans and Harmonia. "Blue will need to come with us," Jin said. "Without Blue, we have no way to talk to them properly." Admiral Lee nodded. "Agreed, but we still don't know much about their intentions." Blue, who had been listening quietly, tapped on the table to get their attention. It picked up its tablet and drew a simple picture. 2 circles side by side, one with stick figures of humans, one with stick figures of Harmonia. 2 ships, Jin guessed. Blue tapped once. "Yes. 1 human ship, 1 Harmonia ship," Dr. Choi said. Blue continued drawing, adding a smaller circle between the 2 larger ones. Jin smiled. "A meeting in the middle. A neutral space." Blue tapped once, then added small figures in the middle circle, humans and Harmonia together. Admiral Lee studied the drawing. It's suggesting representatives from both sides meet face to face. "Isn't that the plan already?" Governor Park asked. "Yes, but I think Blue is saying something more specific," Jin said. He turned to Blue. "How many representatives should meet?" Blue drew 5 stick figures on each side. 5 humans, 5 Harmonia, Jin counted. Admiral Lee looked concerned. "That's a risk. 5 of our people in direct contact with 5 Ravagers. I mean, Harmonia." Blue put down the tablet and made the X shape over its chest. "The friend of my mind" gesture. "Blue is promising safety," Dr. Choi explained. "It's a sacred gesture to them." 3 days later, a special ship was ready. The Earth team included Admiral Lee, Dr. Choi, Dr. Yoon, Governor Park, and Jin. Blue would travel with them. As they prepared to leave, Nay approached Jin. "I wish I could go too," she said, "but someone needs to take care of the clinic." Jin smiled. "You've been amazing through all of this, Nay. When I get back, I promise things will be different. Better." Na nodded. "Just be careful. And tell Blue I'll miss our puzzle games." The journey to the meeting point took 5 days. Blue seemed excited, often drawing pictures of its home world to show Jin and the others. Through more mind connections with Dr. Choi, they learned more about Harmonia society. "They don't have countries or separate governments like we do," Dr. Choi explained during a meeting. "Their telepathic connection means they make decisions as groups. They value harmony among minds. Hence their name," Dr. Yoon noted. Admiral Lee was still cautious. "What about weapons? Defenses?" "Blue says they have them, but only use them against non-thinking threats like dangerous space objects or natural disasters," Dr. Choi answered. "They never imagined using them against other thinking beings until they met humans. And thought we weren't thinking beings," Jin added. When they reached the meeting point, another ship was already there. It was unlike any human ship, shaped like a giant crystal with glowing blue lines running through it. "The Harmonia ship," Admiral Lee said quietly. Blue stood at the viewing window, all 8 eyes fixed on the ship. Jin could sense its excitement even without telepathic powers. "Your people," Jin said, standing beside Blue. Blue tapped once, then made a new gesture. It spread all its limbs wide, then brought them together in a circle. "What does that mean?" Jin asked Dr. Choi. She smiled. "Home, family, belonging." Admiral Lee joined them at the window. "The neutral meeting pod is ready. Are we all prepared?" Jin looked at Blue. "Are you ready to help us talk to your people?" Blue tapped once, firmly. The neutral pod was a small space station positioned between the 2 ships. Inside was a simple round room with 10 chairs, 5 designed for humans, 5 modified for Harmonia bodies. Jin, Admiral Lee, Governor Park, Dr. Choi, and Dr. Yoon entered first. Blue came with them. They waited nervously for the Harmonia representatives to arrive. When the door on the opposite side opened, Jin held his breath. 5 Harmonia entered. They looked similar to Blue, but each had different markings and slightly different body shapes. One was clearly older, with faded colors and slow movements. Blue stepped forward and made a series of gestures to the other Harmonia. They responded with their own gestures. "They're greeting each other," Dr. Choi whispered. "The older one is their leader." The Harmonia leader approached Admiral Lee and extended a blade limb, flat side up, the same gesture Blue had first made to Jin. Admiral Lee looked at Jin questioningly. "It's a greeting," Jin explained. "Touch your hand to the flat part. It's safe." Admiral Lee hesitated, then reached out and placed his hand on the Harmonia's limb. A historic moment, the first intentional, peaceful touch between the leaders of two civilizations. Dr. Choi gasped. "I can feel them," she said. "They're opening their minds to us." Jin felt it too, a gentle presence touching his thoughts. Not pushing, just offering connection. Images flowed into his mind. Harmonia children learning, adults working together, the beauty of their crystal cities. "They want to share their world with us," Jin said in wonder. The Harmonia leader made a series of gestures, which Blue translated through Dr. Choi. "They say they have waited many cycles to meet beings like us," Dr. Choi explained. "They regret the misunderstandings and lost lives. They want to start new." Admiral Lee nodded. "Tell them we feel the same. We want peace." Blue relayed this to the Harmonia leader, who responded with more gestures. "They propose an exchange," Dr. Choi translated. "Some Harmonia would like to visit Earth, and they invite some humans to visit their world." "Like ambassadors?" Governor Park asked. "Yes," Dr. Choi confirmed after Blue explained. "They believe direct experience is the best way to build understanding." As the meeting continued, Jin watched with amazement. The two groups, who had been deadly enemies for years, were now planning trade routes, knowledge exchanges, and safety protocols. At one point, the Harmonia leader approached Jin directly. It made the friend of my mind gesture, then added a new movement, touching Jin's chest lightly. "What does that mean?" Jin asked Blue. Through Dr. Choi, Blue explained. "The leader says you are a healer of bodies and a healer of worlds. You have the highest honor among the Harmonia now." Jin felt his eyes grow wet. "I was just doing my job, trying to save a life." The Harmonia leader made another gesture. "It says," Dr. Choi translated, "that sometimes the greatest acts come from the simplest choices." As the meeting ended and plans were made for future talks, Jin stood with Blue at the viewing window, looking out at the stars. "When I decided to treat you," Jin said quietly, "everyone thought I was foolish, including me." Blue tapped twice. "No. No?" Jin was surprised. Blue drew on its tablet, a simple heart shape, then a medical symbol, then a bridge connecting two circles. Jin understood. "You're saying healing comes from the heart, and it builds bridges." Blue tapped once. Jin smiled. "I guess being foolish enough to help someone different isn't so foolish after all." Blue made the friend of my mind gesture one more time. Jin returned it. The foolish human vet who had treated the deadliest alien beast had changed the course of two civilizations. As their ships prepared to carry the news back to their worlds, Jin knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both humans and Harmonia. Sometimes, the greatest wisdom looks like foolishness at first.